Welcome back to Block TV, this time of the week where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere, basically have them answer questions while they try to keep sober. Yes, it's time for Blockchain on Booze. And the victims joining us today, Ellie Sklar, founder and CEO.
Hello.
Hello to you. At SafeBit, please raise your glass. Salut. Returning victim Alex Davis from Policy Pup. Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Eliran Levy, your first-time victim, CEO and founder at Cryptalk. Hello.
Cheers.
But because you're all men, we cannot do this without another woman. Joining us also, delighted to be joined via Skype from Helsinki. Thank God for you. By Finance Magnets. Rachel McIntosh, who I am so happy to see you sipping.
I'm so happy to see you here. Yeah.
What kind of wine is that, by the way?
Believe this or not, it's black currant wine that's home brewed.
Yes.
Vinegary, but
and everybody's going like, they're lovely. Let's dive into it, people. It's been a terrible, terrible, terrible week. As many will argue, we're going to start smack with the Bitcoin price crash. And we must begin by addressing the dip. Bitcoin dropping by roughly 13% in a matter of hours. And the rest of the market, of course, followed suit. Needless to say, we know Bitcoin is volatile sometimes, but we haven't experienced in the last few months this type of a dip. Perhaps most worrisome is the fact that no one, as usual, can really explain the drop and thus have an ability to anticipate future fluctuations. But traders in the sphere have an idea. One of them we spoke with this week, Tone Vase, had the following to say. Let's all have a listen.
I was looking for this breakdown. The worst possible target that is reasonable, the worst case scenario reasonable target for me is about $5,000. That is the completion of the triangle. At the moment, we are being held by the 200-day moving average, which is also standard technical analysis.
We're going to start with the panel here in the studio. Rachel, listen up because I'm sure you have an idea. What do you think caused this?
There's a whole host of things.
Okay.
It's not one. There's all sorts of talk on the margin trading on BitMEX, and then the lackluster performance of Backed and Binance US.
I think all of them together.
And
like
then also the technicals were pointing at it for a while. There's no like shot that was heard around the world that just sort of like made this collapse. It was just a whole bunch of things that converged and
essentially. Okay.
I would have to disagree with my friend. Actually, I've been watching Bitcoin for quite some time, and I think it's a cycle. It's a cycle when we are participating a climax of Bitcoin, but in a specific way. You can watch that this is a cycle of rise. Only we're going down just to go up, if I can summarize it in a few words. But as Tone said that, I think we were expecting this fall.
That we were expecting this fall.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was expecting a fall. I'm wondering, though, if the reasoning behind it, apropos back, which we'll get to in a second. What do you think, by the way?
I think, though, in the last half a year or so, we've seen a lot of people talking about the Bitcoin price going up, up, up. We're going to the moon. And it might be just a downslide to continue going up. So that might be it.
That might be it. Rachel, from all the reasons that you're hearing, and I first saw, and we'll get to that in a second, Matty Greenspan's fabulous line of he put it all on back. He said, buy the rumor, sell the news, so to speak. But what do you think caused the crash?
yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you there. We saw a couple weeks ago this launch of VanEck and SolidX, fake, mini Bitcoin ETF, let's say, and that kind of flopped. So that was the first sort of sign that maybe this institutional interest that's in Bitcoin just simply isn't there. But
right.
I think people saw backed as an opportunity for markets to go even further up. As Eli was saying, things are going up and up and up and up since April, basically now. But that was the first sign, okay, maybe this isn't going to be what we thought, but maybe some people were still holding out, still buying a little bit more, hoping that the back launch would bring the price up instead of down. Unfortunately, that's not really what happened. And the CEO and founder of the Continental Exchange said himself that demand among institutional investors isn't really there yet. He's seeing strong interest, but not necessarily.
No, very true. There's by the way, do we think it's going to keep going? At the time of taping this, there's an upward trend, okay? Slight, one can argue. Do we think this is going to maintain? And does the price matter that much at this point? I mean, I personally did not see this as, look, we're going up, but where do we think this is heading?
I think,
prediction, obviously.
I think that if you analyze the chart of a weekly watch, you can see that we are actually aiming even lower, unfortunately, because this drop down was lower than expected. It's supposed to be in around 9,800 and 8,700, but it went much lower. So there's a chance of hitting even 6,000 or 5,000.
No, I'm wondering with you guys, are we still in a bull market, or do you think that this latest price drop just reversed everything?
I don't think we're in a bull market. I think we are going to see Bitcoin dropping below at least the 7,000 region. Every time it tends to kind of tick up, it fails to break free, and it looks like it's trying to, and just kind of really can't break that barrier.
Right.
Besides for that, I think it's really good for the market as well. You get people who are just in it for a quick buck, and you kind of need to bleed out the weak traders in this market. I mean, there's still altcoins
Come on, guys,
that are.
Who isn't in it for the quick buck?
That's part of the speculative problem. People are. You got to weed out the weaklings in a way.
I totally agree. I think that's exactly an announcement of the institutional traders coming in slowly, but totally getting rid of the weak ones.
And also, who doesn't want cheaper Bitcoin? Let's all be honest. Do you really want to be buying at 13,000, or would you rather pick some up at 5 again?
Okay, then an intimate question to everybody. Don't worry, nobody's watching. Who bought into the dip? Everybody's
We
sipping
bought
their glasses.
everything we could. No, but if we look at the cycles of previous Bitcoin going up, it's always the same kind of pattern, right? Where we're going stable for a while, and then we have a slight dip. Sometimes that dip is not that slight. And after a while, it's just used as a springboard to go to new heights, basically. And it looks like a similar pattern to what we're seeing in the last couple of weeks or so, or a couple of months actually, where Bitcoin is, as you described, is trying to break the 10,000 and not managing to. It could be that it's trying to break down. It could be that it's trying to break up. Mm-hmm. I believe that it's trying to break up, and the downward spiral right now is not necessarily going to stop anytime soon, but in my point of view, in the next couple of months, we're going up.
You're going up. We're going up. And this, by the way, people, is an early Bitcoin adopter, I'm just saying. Okay, but much anticipated launch of BACT that failed to impress. Let's take a deep dive into that one. And one of the causes lashed on to explain, as everybody's saying, either part of a perfect storm, was the buy the rumor, sell the news, so to speak, and that was the very lackluster launch of BACT. Basically, after suffering setbacks and delays, needless to say, everybody was expecting BACT. Was there too much hype built around that launch? Now that reality has set in, can we keep things in perspective? And what does it say about the desperation in the industry? One wonders. Let's have a listen to what Matty Greenspan had to say about that really, how should we put it, flaccid kind of launch of BACT. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, so this is, yes, for me, this is the main catalyst that drove that snap in the downward-facing triangle. So basically, traders have been for months buying up Bitcoin. I mean, let's say, so over the past year, we've been seeing this BACT launch happening or playing out. And they've been talking to the CFTC, and every once in a while we get news of how that was going. And as it became more clear that they were going to be able to go ahead with that, we saw the price of Bitcoin rising drastically. In fact, just about all of this movement from the lows of December all the way to the highs of June, I would say that has largely been driven by increased institutional adoption. And some of that, of course, is Libra, especially that last leg. A lot of it was Libra. But a lot of it, but for the most part, the first half was almost all based on the fact that BACT is going to be able to launch these Bitcoin futures contracts on Wall Street. There were very high hopes, right? People thought that, out of the gate that they're going to be able to, to generate, $1 billion worth of trading volume in a day. So to see them on their first day with less than $1 million, in volume, it's kind of a bit of a letdown. There's an old saying in the market, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news, and that's exactly what happened here on a very large scale. We had people buying up the rumor, and then when the news comes out, they did take a dump.
Was it buy the rumor, sell the news? I mean, you know what, Rachel, I'm going to start with you actually, because from the moment I started covering the sphere, BACT was one of the main stories. Okay, and we're looking at the battle for this to be approved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here it happens, it launches, and blah. What does that do to the sphere? What does it do to the road to institutionalization, so to speak?
Right, exactly. So it's kind of a funny thing. I think that this is exactly what's happening. At least this is sort of the easiest way to explain what has happened to the Bitcoin price over the last couple of months. Yeah. But I think that, to a certain degree, maybe, the cryptocurrency ecosystem, after seeing, this kind of flopping, and perhaps when and if there's a US markets crypto Bitcoin ETF that gets launched, if that is, attracting as much institutional capital that everybody thought, I think that people are starting to becoming aware of the fact that, like, perhaps Bitcoin isn't going to $100,000 or $50,000 or even $20,000 anytime soon. And that we still see some people in the market who are really pushing for that, who are saying that this is just going to happen in a couple of months. Not as many people as were
as before, but that's very true. I mean, the hype always by many people who are wheelers and dealers in the spheres told you we're going to 20, we're going to 150 by XYZ. It's a lot of the wheel and the fuel that runs this market, no?
Have you been reading Udi Wertheimer's tweets about all of this, or?
No, please do, tell me.
No, well, besides, I've actually got something on that for later, but
say it now. Go ahead.
You're kind of right on that. Well, in some sense, but Rome wasn't built in a day. It's 10 years old. Still, most people don't know how to operate any capacity of cryptocurrency. And yeah, I don't think in one day all of a sudden you're gonna have billions of trading in this new market that most traders don't even really know how to use or do.
I'm with you entirely in that, but when there's so much hype in this market, that's the thing. When there's so much, there are many major characters in this sphere are hyping those numbers. Then how does one?
They're hyping it because that's what they do, right? They want to bring the Bitcoin price up and to bring the economy and to extend it and enlarge it as much as possible. Most of the people who are hyping the price, they're heavily invested in Bitcoin one way or another, or they have a business in it. So they have a vested interest in hyping it up. And
that's how markets work.
And that's how markets work. And especially in Bitcoin, we've seen that happening over and over again. Every wave, there is a bunch of hypes coming in. Again, a downward spiral for a while, and then we're starting to go up.
I think that institutional traders are waiting for regulations. I think that even if BACT has the back of ICE and the New York Stock Exchange Authority, still they are looking for some regulations to have the Bitcoin ETF
Needless to say, even though one was just pulled once again, what was it, last week? Van Eck again pulled, and not a surprise there. I tend to agree with that. An ETF, even though we all know is not going to do wonders for Bitcoin, but it will, I think, for a great part of the generation that's still alive and working with money, it will make it kosher, so to speak, in a way.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Eliran that the institutionals are hyped about Bitcoin. They want to get in on the train and get the gains 100x or whatever. But regulation is very murky all around the world, basically, and the United States is an excellent example because there are different states who treat Bitcoin differently. and the institutionals don't really want to maybe risk on that to see what's going to happen. They can get into Bitcoin in other ways if they wish so, and the ETFs are just risky for them at the moment. And the hype that we've seen about the backed is simply to pump up backed and not necessarily.
But I'm going to turn to Alex's point, because you're right. Bitcoin, I mean, do we think that at a certain point, it's here to stay, one can argue, because it may be only 10 years old, but it has survived. What else do you think needs to happen for institutions to come on board? And do we think that they are afraid of it?
Well, institutions already are on board. If you look at
regulators, American regulators, let's say, are they still that?
They're still on board. They're still like if you look at the investment funds for like Yale and Harvard, like a lot of these colleges and whatnot, they're buying up Bitcoin. I think that like Eliran said, they're waiting for regulation. Right. They're waiting to see what is going to, let's say, how this is going to play out. It's sort of like everyone's afraid that they're going to dump a ton of money into it and it's going to collapse like it did today. And so what they're basically saying is like, maybe let the Titanic go across the Atlantic one time, and let's just make sure it works.
Let's see if it can.
We've been here before.
To the other side of the pond, so to speak. It's interesting about the regulation. I'm wondering with you, Rachel, do you think there's an understanding? And I'm turning to the Americans. Do you think there's an understanding? And we're getting to that in a minute, though. That that regulation is needed in the States. Do they get it? The regulators.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Do you think that the regulators, do you think that in the States there is an understanding that, I don't want to say time is running out, but that they're taking their sweet time and the world is moving ahead when it comes to crypto?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think that, for example, the SEC with this ETF thing, it seems like they are, even though, despite the fact that there's been delay after delay after delay, they still haven't, I think we've talked about this before, they still haven't denied it outright. Like they still are at least open to the fact that this could be a thing someday in the future. Although Jay Clayton has recently said there's more work to be done, and there's still
we're getting to him. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that U.S. regulators recognize the fact that this is something that is likely to get bigger in one way or another. Not necessarily like Bitcoin to 100,000 in a year or 2 years even, but like. That this is something that is slowly being picked up more and more in more and more different contexts, more and more different demographics of people are using this. It's entering into new kinds of technology. It's something that isn't going to go away. So I think U.S. regulators are, of course, things are moving slowly, to say the least, but I think that they recognize the fact that there is a need for this to be integrated into the economy in and healthy way sometime in the relatively near future.
In the relatively near future. Entirely so. Yes.
An interesting point on this. I really am interested to see what's going to happen with retail money going into Bitcoin. Because now, to a regular person, it's like, okay, I still get asked, isn't Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme? And so I have to go explain it on the back of a napkin, but...
No, entirely. I mean,
but now
it's a very valid point. We're still living in an age where people ask, what the heck is Bitcoin?
Right, yeah. But you've got BACT, which is owned by ICE, which owns the New York Stock Exchange, and they are selling Bitcoin. It's got this, like, let's say...
2 degrees of separation from...
it's got a degree of separation.
2 degrees of separation from...
It's got more validity.
From prestige.
And so people at home are like, okay, well, you know what, like, I can buy into this. It doesn't just need to come from, it's like, you can actually check the ticker on Yahoo now. You can see it in the New York Stock Exchange. And I'm wondering where the retail money, how that's going to move in this, not just institutional.
Not just institutional, because that, at the end of the day, that'll make it stick.
Also, the regulators, I think they're kind of taking their time because they're not sure how to classify Bitcoin specifically or crypto in general. We've seen Libra coming out, and the regulator are basically, they don't know what to do. They're standing there looking at it, and they're not sure how to react to that.
No, entirely, and this is a perfect segue. Actually, I'm going first to Kik. It's a perfect segue to how do they react to something that has, in the short span of life that it has lived, so to speak, Bitcoin, but also the cryptosphere has such a bad rep. Let's talk about Kik. Kik kicks the bucket is how I headline this. The mother of all ICO's demise. Now, before the price of Bitcoin took over the headlines, it was Kik making all the news in bizarre fashion, never mind the deleted drunken tweets of its CEO, reminding you that Kik was a Canadian, his messaging app, whatnot. They were once valued at $1 billion. It is closing its app, according to them, firing around 70 of its 100 staff, in large part because, and again quoting them, of the SEC's investigation into its ICO and the expected expensive court case that is set to follow. Not only that, I just want to remind people that they did raise $100 million. So break my little heart, I have to say. Jay Clayton spoke this week about ICOs, but I think one of the main concerns that they have regulators in states, it's things like this. First of all, let's trash Kik, shall we? What do you think is happening with Kik?
I want.
Rachel is loving me. Yeah.
I actually brought a friend to this studio. I want to introduce Eric. This is my friend Eric. and
Eric is going to have to come home with me. Okay. What does Eric do?
Eric, everybody knows Eric. Everybody listens to Eric, but nobody really knows who stands behind Eric. And I think
what does Eric do? Or Eric, what he does?
Eric spread news around social media, and he does it in a very fake identity. And I think that this is one of the diseases that we're suffering right now on blockchain and in crypto especially, and different kinds of social media like Kik and others that I won't mention their names, actually helping many users to hide behind fake identities, yet everybody listens to Eric. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows exactly who stands behind this character in a group or different channel. And that's one of the epidemic I think that crypto is suffering right now, which will be solved by regulation.
That, and maybe possibly if somebody decides to shut down social media. That's a joke. Because you're right. I mean, Eric is a bot. Somebody controls, somebody controls Eric. He tends to decide elections. Again, a joke. But very true. And that's the problem with Kik. And I'm wondering because Kik, look, I know people within the sphere that bought into their token. First of all, do we think that token, that's really what they're going to do?
I don't think it's dead.
You don't think it's dead?
I definitely don't think it's dead.
Shoot back at me.
I might be taking a complete...
No, please.
I might be like the complete opposite thought in the room, or
why.
Country, or
Please,
field, or industry. But essentially, this is where Udi came in. Udi was talking about how on Reddit, all of the Kik and Kin fans were going nuts about this. And then you actually read all these other edit posts. And one, the drunken tweet that Ted Livingston,
that's CEO, yes.
Yeah,
that he deleted.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that he didn't delete it. It was actually a hoax against CoinDesk, and then CoinDesk came out and retracted what they said about it. So that was something that got published.
Although I will
validation.
stop you from the high age of life that I am, that what you describe now sounds like high school. But yes.
Of course. But I mean, that's like, what are all these Telegram groups?
Exactly.
Eric is a fudster. There might not need to be anything in it. But there's rumors of restructuring. Kik didn't raise $100 million. The Kin Foundation did, and they're legally two separate entities. And so what I think they might try and do here, I might completely be wrong.
Okay.
Is that Kik is shutting down and restructuring. And if the SEC wants to go after Kik for doing a $100 million ICO, and Kik doesn't exist anymore because they don't have any more money, they're shutting down, they're putting all their money into lawsuits, but Kin's got the money, and Kid did a utility token sale, they can't go after Kin because it's completely legal. Kik is gone.
That's a very, very interesting point. Let's go back then to Jay Clayton at the beginning of this week, head of the SEC, talking about ICOs. Because that might be actually a legal play by Kik. This is what Jay Clayton had to say. Needless to say, he's not a big fan of ICOs. But let's have a listen.
We have a group at the commission that is focused on digital assets, both the potential they have to add efficiency, but also the risks they face. And look, we saw this in the quote unquote ICO space. $4 billion, or pick your number, raised, most of it gone, not complying with our rules. I think we had a great effort from our Division of Corporation Finance, as well as our enforcement division, to say, hey, if you're selling securities, you got to follow our rules. And we're gonna do the same thing across all digital assets that touch in the security.
Rachel McIntosh of Finance Magnets, wondering with you, Jay Clayton, SEC head, clearly, you know, we see his feelings and the road that the SEC is taking to clamp down on ICOs. How that kick campaign to go against the SEC, remember that mail that went out, remember, you know, they turned it into their cause celeb. How bad was it for them? How bad was it for the Sphere? And is this all just a legal play in your mind?
Yes, I remember it well, Yael. I don't know that it was such a bad thing. And Alex, I think that was a great point that you made about the separation of kick from the Kin Foundation. That's a really great point. That is, you know, because there is a possibility that, you know, that Kin could live on separate from Kick. You know, there was a piece that came out in Forbes associating Kick not only with this SEC trouble, but also with the fact that it's a platform that has been used by pedophiles and human traffickers and all these things. And that's not unique to any social media platform. I mean, that happens on Facebook, that happens on Twitter, that happens everywhere.
That one can argue that happens in, you know, in Tron, apropos, there was, you know, when it comes to, you know, accusations in Beijing. But yes, go ahead.
Right, exactly. But I, you know, I think that if they manage to pull this off, I'm interested to see what happens. I'm not going to write it off completely, but I think that, you know, when Kik originally announced this plan for the Kin token, in the SEC's filing against Kik, it says that one of their board members called this a quote, Hail Mary pass to try and save the business, which was not doing well. And, you know, as we've gotten further into this battle, instead of backing off, Kik is like, hold my beer. Like, I'm going to go for this even further instead of, I mean, like they're really, really digging deep into this idea, which on the one hand, like, is questionable for a number of reasons. But on the other hand, if they can manage to pull this off with a solid business plan, if they can manage to get use cases and adoption and use this platform that they now have, this new platform, which is focused entirely on cryptocurrency and blockchain, to somehow, you know, create a niche for themselves, perhaps, or to further adoption of cryptocurrency in general, then this could be something that lives on. But I'm not convinced that they have the know-how and, you know, the connections, the reputation, you know, necessarily required to make those connections. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, they have $100 million in funding for the Kin Foundation, so they can hire those people.
Do they still have that $100 million? That's what I mean.
Depends on when they cashed out.
Okay.
If they kept it all in like Ether, then no. If they kept it all in Kin, then, you know, if they transferred it to Kin, then it's like, I don't know.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's like $10 now. But
yeah, I'm wondering again, you know, just to all of you, what does this do on the road to regulation for people like, not people, but for the SEC? Because, I mean, I wonder if that battle was supposed to, you know, it's a good battle as an idea, but was it the right company to launch it, given where we're heading right now?
I think that's why the Kik decided to basically move away from that, because they don't want to, that's what the CEO said, he doesn't want to fight the war that is ensuing, and doesn't want to be the first one to go against the SEC, and somebody will have to go. We'll see if that's going to be Kik or someone else. The SEC still might decide that it's going to be Kik.
it's going to set precedent.
Yeah,
it's going to set regulatory precedent, and it's a little, don't shoot me now, it's a little chivalrous on the part of Kin. Not Kik, but Kin.
But Kin.
Yes.
Okay, you're making the Ted Livingston's going to find you. Let's talk about those people who really don't give a shit about regulation. TON, flying under regulators' radars. I love the TON story. I can't wait for that thing to launch, by the way. Speaking of journalism in the cryptosphere, there's a great article by the publication Decrypt, who surveyed financial regulators on their readiness for the launch of TON, T-O-N, Telegram's open network. Everybody's expecting that to happen by October 31st. It most likely will happen, which, when made available next month, will be the world's biggest blockchain with a user base of hundreds of millions of people, folks. So Decrypt found the regulators across the board in various countries, and they asked them how will they treat that. Some of them, you know, in Europe didn't even know about TON's arrival. That's because, and, you know, others, you know, basically shrugged it away. Can it be because Facebook is even a larger project that they have in mind? But I just want to remind people, on September 8th this year, just a few weeks ago, Telegram dumped 500,000 lines of code for TON, hundreds of pages of new documentation, and a beta. Okay, and with less than 6 weeks to go, there's no time to prove if it's fit to handle hundreds of millions of users. But they're moving ahead. They may be the real thing.
Well, they legally have to. They legally have to.
I know they legally have to.
Like they have to refund all the money if they don't launch by, I think, October 31st.
Entirely, but many,
yeah.
there are a lot of people that did the same move in the past and didn't really give a damn about that. I'm sure they have to, and they will do it. I know they're not. It's Telegram at the end of the day. Okay, and don't we think though, if they deliver on those promises, if this thing works, this is it. This is decentralization.
But how is it decentralization? I think it's more again the difference between Libra to Telegram. What is the big difference? The big difference is again fake identities. On Facebook, you didn't know that you're going to have one day Libra when you are a user of Facebook, because you did it back then, and right now once you have a coin to buy or sell. But on Telegram, it's still moving on, and I think that the potential of Tone is much more substantial than Libra, and eventually it will be kind of problematic for because it's not like regulated by states, and it will be problematic as time goes by.
I actually don't think Dorov wants to be regulated. I think this is, I really think that's his point. But again, that's a theory of mine. I don't know that. The thing is, let's say, okay, it launches, it's not regulated. It's got approximately, on the day of the launch, approximately 250 million, I think, users of Telegram in that respect. What does it do you think, guys? What does it do to the sphere?
Well, first of all, it's a messaging platform, so users are already using it, and a lot of the crypto world is using Telegram exclusively, which is kind of very fitting for Tone to operate
Crypto
there.
and journalists, by the way.
And journalists, yeah.
Yes.
A lot of broadcasting channels.
Would they use Ton though?
That's the great question, because the way I see it right now, Ton is basically a wrapper that connects to Telegram and gives you basic blockchain wallet. Will that be sufficient for users? Will users and developers jump on that and work with that? It might be. Depends what actually Telegram delivers in terms of features, in terms of incentive for the developers and the users. As it stands right now, users have tons of different wallets to pick and choose from. Not necessarily they want to use this specific one unless Telegram does something to incentivize.
That makes it so easy to incentivize.
Exactly.
It's like a one-stop shop.
If they make it like send so-and-so dollars to another user.
No, and the
just in
fascinating
chat.
thing that we really don't know what it is exactly.
Yeah.
And we really don't know. Okay.
It really depends on what they deliver and how well they do it.
What do you think?
I completely agree with Ellie. It's it doesn't really help if I could send someone $10 or $5, but it's completely useless in the real world. So I think that needs to connect back somehow to like a real world use case or some sort of crypto use cases like utility tokens are being used for. But it doesn't help if you send me 100,000 Ton,
And I can't do any,
and you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So great, there's a number on a screen and it's useless. It might as well be 100 billion. I'm still waiting for its use case. I still really want to see what they build, and we'll know before Halloween.
Yeah. What do you think, Rachel? What are they building? What is coming?
And Ellie and Alex are kind of on point here. It's something like, like you were saying, it has a lot of users, like Libra could potentially have if that gets launched. But with Libra, we've seen, all these people coming out and say it's going to be like, big in third world countries. It's going to be huge in remittances and for retail and for all of these different things. While this project really hasn't had that kind of PR, and like you said, I think there might be a reason for that. Maybe Dorov doesn't, wants this to kind of fly under the radar, doesn't want to form the relationships with regulators that Libra has at least been saying that it's trying to form. So I think that really the users will dictate what this turns into, if it turns into anything. I mean, we have the token, we have the platform. Is it going to be useful? I don't know, but just as in the same way that Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these different cryptocurrencies have been adopted and sort of built up, their ecosystems have been built up by users. Right. I think that's the same thing that we're going to see with Ton here.
And they do have users, guys.
What I really want to know, though, I mean, they have users, but the question is, are those the types of users to use the coin? The issue with Telegram, though, is that the product is encrypted, and the entire point of Telegram is encryption. And so if that's the inherent point of the messaging platform, is that going to be the inherent point of the token? And then you'll see governments cracking down on the, just as the US already has.
Right.
Are they going to crack down on TON?
It's a good margarita.
Yeah. Are they gonna crack down on TON as some form of money transfer that could be utilized as I don't know, by terrorists, or if you could just message some, you can send it to a journalist in Syria, but where's he going to use it, as we were talking about? So great, this guy got $50 to live for the week, but it's not useful. But then what happens if you could send it to Afghanistan in an encrypted message that you can't read? So either there's going to be a play by Telegram to cooperate with governments, or which doesn't seem like.
And Telegram already have the reputation, so to speak, of the Paris bombings, of being affiliated with. Needless to say, also they have a reputation of helping the demonstrators in Hong Kong. But there's it's a major issue.
Yeah, the privacy coin issue is going to play into this as well, because it's now not just sending money to someone else, because okay, you could track people's emails, fine, but now you can't track their text messages. So.
No, it will be interesting to see, and I think there's a bigger agenda for Durov, but who knows?
Is there a chance that Telegram will do what Kik did? We're closing down the messaging service. Well, you're going to use the Teleton.
Yeah, never mind. We're just going that, and that's a theory in many ways.
I think we'll see when MySpace does an ICO.
Do you remember that? Yeah, well, MySpace does an ICO. Wow.
Hold the ICO.
Okay. We cannot forget, though, about a very big thing that happened this week also in the United States that kind of got lost in the flare of prices dropping. News that got lost in the crash, I call it. So last up, Binance is back in the United States. And that was after Binance.com blocked access to its platform for U.S. customers earlier this year. The Chinese exchange resumed its services to U.S. customers this week, rolling out Binance US, which is being operated by local company BAM Trading Services. Let's have a listen to what the CEO of Binance US, Catherine Coley, had to say. It's an interesting thing. We put it together for you, at first distancing and saying that they're independent from Binance, and then a few minutes later, kind of trailing that back. Let's have a listen.
Binance US is its independent entity, so we are not connected liquidity-wise to Binance.com. A lot of people will groan and say that's unfortunate, and it is, but what we're doing is really allowing for trading to take place within the borders where we're allowed to be operating. So we'll start little. This is just the beginning, really building up that liquidity based on an experience for trading that I think you'll enjoy. Our funds, SAFU, that's from Mirror Mirage Zero. Yes, so your funds are SAFU, SAFU, however you call it, tomato, tomato. But the Binance US, as being a partner to Binance, we are able to address this insurance in a useful and pragmatic way through this type of fund. And so it's a component that we saw at Binance for the security of the funds and its use, allocating a portion of the trading fees to protect the customer funds. And that's something that we'll adopt here in the US as well.
Yeah, who controls Binance US?
That was so not confidence inspiring. It's safe for SAFU or whatever it is. I can't pronounce it, but
that word.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate that we're not connected to liquidity.
I have so many things to say on that one, but still, what do we think? I mean, they are, first of all, the return of Binance to the US.
Wait, did Binance ever leave the US? No, in all honest truth, because who in the crypto world does not have a VPN?
Yeah.
True.
Swear to God, like in all, crypto is still something that I preach about day in and day out. UI UX is absolutely horrendous. Thank you God, Coinbase and Portis and Zengo, wherever you guys are if you're watching this. But for the most part, the UI UX, the customer experience, sucks.
Yeah.
Binance is great for an exchange.
Yeah.
Coinbase is off the hook great for buying for regular people. Mm-hmm. But for the crypto people who were using Binance, did it ever really go away?
Yeah.
Well, on paper it did.
On paper, no, it's very true. But they're doing the right thing by complying and trying.
Of course.
I mean, obviously it didn't really go away. One can argue, in a way. But
who's really using Binance US then? You're seeing a lackluster launch, but all the people who were using Binance before are still using the other Binance.
Yeah, the Binance. What do you mean launch? I've been on it all the time. Okay.
Binance US needs to look after Coinbase.
Rachel, go.
Yeah, but I would wonder, they're blocking it to people who are just in the US, who are using like a US server to access the exchange, or is it people who are registered as users living in the US?
I think that in terms of competition and who's using Binance US, the market is young, is extremely young. It just started 10 years ago, it was born. So it has a lot of leeway until it becomes crowded and nobody uses it. If a new exchange comes in and provides you with some features, in the next couple of years, at least 5-10 years even, I think, we'll see different exchanges coming in, providing different features, different capabilities to users that will cater to different types of users. So Binance US probably gives something to the US customers, and it might not be, a landslide towards Binance moving from Coinbase or whatever, but it will probably grow as long as Binance is
Look,
here.
at the end of the day, it's very good for the competition. Competition is good.
They welcome the competition.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
they welcome the
course.
competition, and it's going to do good things. That said, Binance, who by the way, are somewhat of an enigma to crack, as they've been growing in an amazing pace. I'm wondering if their money is ever going to run out. But are they becoming too powerful, folks?
I think that, first of all, Binance has good leadership. The
Or
owner...
a really good strategy.
Yeah,
Because to me, there always looks, somebody in on this panel a few weeks ago said, it looks like it's 3 people from a tiny room operating it.
Exactly.
The whole thing.
Exactly, exactly. But
Yeah.
if you listen to
CZ.
CZ, he knows what he's doing, and he's true to his way. And I got the chance to read the articles about him and to listen to many interviews with him. And you see that this guy is devoted to make this blockchain revolution. And once you are devoted to this cause, I think that the fact of the U.S. Binance U.S. is only to protect the citizens of American citizens.
They want to do a trade. They want to trade basically in a way that is lawful.
Exactly.
Okay. Too big for their own good, though, guys. There's something about Binance. No.
Why are you saying that?
Look, I mean, their strategy is fascinating in that respect. Because from them, they launched 2 years ago, and this is, Rachel, help me out. This is like the taking over of the sphere within 5 minutes by basically going international from the second they came out the door, in a way.
Yeah.
They're doing things right.
They're doing things right.
Yeah.
They're doing things right. And, although that soundbite from Catherine Coley wasn't super inspiring, she did say something recently in an interview that
No, and I gotta say, more power to women CEOs. Okay, here.
Yeah.
Okay, more power to women CEOs. But yes, you're right. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, okay. It's all good. But she did say something that I thought was really astute, and I think that this is something that Binance has embraced as a company everywhere in the world. Is that this is not a zero-sum game. It's not like we've been saying. It's not like there's a set amount of users in the U.S. that'll only ever be this amount of people that will use cryptocurrency exchanges, and we have to get them. The key is to approach new kinds of people, new demographics, new communities of potential users, and then onboard them onto the exchange that way. I mean, Binance US going to be able to, be comparable to Binance? Probably not anytime soon. But I think that if they can manage to treat this as an opportunity to bring new people into the sphere, we could see some good things happening for Binance US.
Amen to that.
I do have to add on to that.
Please.
I completely agree, because I think that Binance US moving into the regulated US side of things, one, opens them up to now allow you not just to buy crypto through your credit card, but through bank accounts. You see Coinbase reacting by publishing a precursor that they're going to look at launching another 17 coins,
To combat
most
that.
of which are not even out yet. They don't even exist at the moment. But also, I think there's something really interesting is who they picked for the CEO. As much as I actually, gave her
A hard time.
About. Yeah, thank you for correcting me there. A hard time.
That's okay. You look scared.
For that, searching for a word that was appropriate. They put in a person who's not technical about these things. They put in somebody who can speak to the mainstream and can bring on new users in a friendly fashion that a lot of people who talk about crypto or lead crypto exchanges, they're not I mean, aside for CZ,
Guys, we're not going to sell with the tech.
They're not-
It's not going to go mass adopted if we come to
But-
people with
of
really,
course.
yeah, exactly.
But I've got a saying now that we have to biddle it for them, and they will come.
Yeah. No, feel the dreams. I want you to raise your glasses, gentlemen, and you, your lovely glass of, what was it, blackcurrant wine. I need to taste that. And I want to thank you for bringing Eric. Where's Eric? Put Eric on the table. Let's have Eric. Eric was fabulous. That's Eric from Blockchain on Booze. Okay, that's the real bot. Guys, thank you, ladies. Thank you. We were Blockchain on Booze in BLOCKTV. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.